This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. I'll tell you what, it was a bad weekend for Donald Trump. It was a bad weekend for Donald Trump in a lot of different ways because, as we'll talk about, electoral losses are piling up for MAGA Republicans, and the forecast does not look very good for Donald Trump's party in the midterm elections, notwithstanding all of his threats to those elections. And then NBC released the second part of an interview this weekend where Donald Trump is talking about the economy and unwittingly took credit for all of this economy's failures. We'll show you that in a little bit here. And then the Super Bowl last night set Donald Trump off because without even trying, Bad Bunny made it a statement against everything we are seeing out of this administration and out of Washington, and he did it with style. And in the meantime, a conservative effort to counter-program the Super Bowl failed spectacularly. Today, to talk about that, we have two very special guests, two rock and roll icons. And stay with us to find out who. This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. Let's start with that first story. This weekend was full of losses for MAGA and Donald Trump alike. So we have a lot to catch up on. Let's start with the continuing and ongoing trend of losing special elections. As we saw over the last few months, Democrats are surprising Republicans with victories in special elections around the country. And the first special election of 2026 gave Democrats early momentum. Two Democratic candidates scored decisive wins in Minnesota, restoring the state house to an even partisan split. And soon after, a high-stakes race unfolded down in Texas. Republicans poured major resources into a suburban Fort Worth state Senate seat, but still lost in that deep, deep red district. Democrat Taylor Remmett, a union leader and Air Force veteran, won by double digits in a district that Donald Trump carried by 17 points in 2024. The president even tried to boost that GOP candidate, then distanced himself after the loss, as he always does. And in Louisiana's special legislative race, by contrast, it was expected to look very different. CBS News has the story.
Louisiana Democrat Chastity Martinez soundly defeated her Republican rival in a special election Saturday for a state house seat in a district President Trump won by 13 points in 2024. While the GOP still holds a resounding majority in the state house, this victory does continue a winning trend for Democrats. Since President Trump took office in his second term, Democrats have flipped 26 state legislative seats from red to blue across the country.
With me to talk about that is my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz. Xander, it does seem like even though these are little races that people don't normally follow, that they are a bellwether for what's going to happen in 2026. And I think you see from Donald Trump's behavior, they're starting to panic.
Yeah. And his victory in 2024 was about putting together this kind of odd bedfellow coalition. He had, an increased share of Latino votes versus his Republican predecessors, black votes, et cetera. And you're starting to see that fall apart. These candidates underperformed Trump like by 15 to 25 points on average, but notably Hispanics now have a 70% disapproval rating of Trump. That's up from 58% just a year ago. It's a demographic that really drove them to victory. And I saw a quote from a Republican operative that was saying they are now needing to rethink even their candidate selection strategy in districts with high Hispanic populations because of how poorly he's doing amongst that demographic now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you were going to invent a first term in office that could do more damage to your winning coalition, you would have selected 2025 to be that year. I mean, the way that he's dented his approval with Hispanics by launching a sweeping and lawless roundup of people of color, foreign immigrants, people who aren't even foreign immigrants, who are U.S. citizens that just look or sound like they're foreign immigrants. All right, that's a way to alienate that coalition. Last week, what he said about Barack and Michelle Obama, posting a picture or posting an image of them as apes, pretty much the most racist thing we've ever seen out of a modern White House. Okay, that's a way to turn off the black voters that had come to you. And then
don't forget attacking the people's champ, Miles Taylor, on the same day.
that's on the same day. You know, he lost the whole pro Miles Taylor coalition. You know, he lost all 7 of those votes. He's not going to have those back. And then bigger picture, you look at what he's done to working class Americans in the first year in office, deliberately increasing the price of goods with tariffs, placing a tax on everything, making life more expensive. If the election was held today, Donald Trump would be crushed. He would have been eviscerated. He never would have won the presidency. And though he's not on the ballot in November, he is on the ballot in November. No Republican is going to be able to run from him. And now I feel like they all are going to want to run from him.
Right. And you know, it's tried and true. You can't, right? There's a trend that's almost unbreakable of the sitting president losing the midterms, or his party losing the midterms. In this case, it's going to be especially devastating. I think it takes, you know, for guys like you and I, Miles, that are plugged in and reading the news every day, sometimes it can feel like there's this lag in the president's popularity and people attributing the issues that we're seeing to him. But I think now there's been enough time, to your point. Prices have been high long enough under him for people to start to attribute that to him. Some of these stats that you and I are familiar with, such as I think it's 8%, it might be lower, the number of people ICE is incarcerating that are actually violent criminals, illegal immigrants and violent criminals, incredibly low. I think the everyday person is starting to see those stats, and some of his policies are starting to be laid bare for everyone. And you're seeing that impact across the general population and the voter base.
Well, look, on the ICE statistics, we see anywhere from, it depends on what period of time. I mean, anywhere from 8 to 15% of the people that ICE is rounding up have criminal records. But that's a far, far cry from this administration's narrative that their focus was going to be on cracking down on the worst of the worst. That's what they won on. They did not win on saying we are going to deport everyone. Now, there are MAGA folks who thought that and hoped that. There are the Stephen Millers in the White House who desperately desired to do that. But what this president sold the American people on when he was a candidate was that we're going to come back in and go after the worst of the worst. Hell, some of the biggest disagreements that have leaked out of this administration have been because advisors to Donald Trump have disagreed about whether to stick to that campaign promise or launch a much more sweeping and draconian dragnet. Which, as they've tried the latter, the American people have fought back, Xander, is they're furious because they've seen the statistics come out, and the statistics are damning. The fact that 9 out of 10 people picked up by ICE do not have a criminal record totally defies what this president had said the American people were going to get. So they're rightfully furious. But let's transition, Xander, into another topic that the people are also very furious about, which is the economy. And we had more bad news this weekend for Donald Trump on the economy because outlets revealed that he may be deciding to claim credit for how bad things are getting. On Sunday, NBC News aired the second part of their big sit-down interview with the president, where he delivered this soundbite that I expect to hear from now until the midterm elections. Donald Trump basically accepted responsibility and ownership of the economy, something he's been very reluctant to do. ABC Chicago.
This morning, President Trump accepting ownership of the current state of the U.S. economy.
I'm very proud of it. And I think 26 is even going to be better. You know, we have hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into our country, actually trillions.
However, the president refused to acknowledge prices are high on many everyday items, including groceries, natural gas, and the cost of coffee.
Well, they've already come down. I think you've seen, Tom, when I took over, eggs, poultry, all these things were through the roof.
Recent polls show that a majority of Americans are not happy with the president's handling of the economy, with just 36% saying they approve of the job he's done. But Trump insisting his economic policies are working. Businesses dealing with Trump's tariffs tell a different story. Consumers will see a direct impact on the cost of flowers, which will be more expensive this Valentine's Day.
So the overall tariffs on flowers from our major countries anywhere from 10 to 25%. This adds significant dollars to the bouquets that are coming in. Every consumer is going to have to face additional costs.
On Capitol Hill, there are growing bipartisan calls for a member of the president's economic team to resign. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick under new pressure because of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The latest batch of Epstein files released show Lutnick planning meetings with Epstein, including one on Epstein's private island. And in a statement, a Commerce Department representative said Mr. Lutnick and his wife met Mr. Epstein in 2005 and had very limited interactions with him over the ensuing years. Nicole D'Antonio, ABC News, Washington.
Coming back into the conversation, Xander, I feel like that was a gift that Trump gave every single Democrat running for office, is to say it's his economy and he's so proud of it. I mean, I would just take that clip and then pair it with a farmer who's gone broke. I would take that clip and pair it with new stickers being put on goods at the store showing prices going up, and just going back to it and back to it and back to it. And I suspect we will see that.
Yeah, I think it speaks to Trump always judging the economy's doing based on the stock market, which, very, very few Americans are exposed to. I think over 60% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their checking account. And you can talk about, the impact on 401ks, but most people are not experiencing the economy that way. Most people are experiencing the economy by the prices at the grocery store, as you mentioned. Most people are experiencing it as, if they have a job or not. And unemployment's at a 4-year high right now. And I think that the most frustrating thing about this, to a certain extent, even though he claimed he could somehow raise tariffs and lower prices, the trade-off to the higher prices has not happened. Jobs have not been reshored. He said he was going to bring manufacturing back to America. It didn't happen. It's not happening, and it won't happen, and we've seen that now. And so we're getting the worst of both worlds. We're getting higher prices, this tariff, revenge campaign to tariff the world because he doesn't like some policy, or in Canada's case, he doesn't like that they put out a video of Reagan. But on top of it, you're not getting manufacturing back in the Rust Belt. Sorry, Miles, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I think Donald Trump's tariff policy will go down as one of the biggest political blunders we've at least seen in this century from an American president. Just an enormous and obvious political blunder. That's what makes it so extraordinary, is Republicans should have seen at the start of last year and said to the White House privately, hey, we shouldn't do this. You're going to make everything more expensive. People are going to hate us. And by the way, they're going to be able to trace the line directly back to us. I mean, just as you heard in that segment, when people are talking about flowers being more expensive to Valentine's Day, it's not like Donald Trump can say, well, the economy is very complicated. There's a lot of reasons flowers are more expensive. No, we've slapped tariffs on the countries that we import flowers from. Ergo, they're more expensive for everyday people. I mean, I sit here with one of those fun, healthy sodas on my desk. My wife tried to get me to stop buying these because she's like, we can't buy these. The price of these just keeps going up. The price of everything keeps going up. And then you also, just normal people deal with this every day. I noticed that when we buy ice cream, that the bottom of the ice cream now has less ice cream in it. They fill it to the top, but they leave air in the bottom, and then it melts and goes down because companies are playing these tricks on people. Yeah, because they can't deal shrinkflation. That's one of their solutions to try to give you the same price point, but they're even struggling to do that. Donald Trump, every single American is feeling this, just except for the tiny, tiny fraction of you and your ultra wealthy buddies that don't understand this was a catastrophic political mistake. And I've got to think, Xander, it's going to have huge repercussions in November.
And we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg here. Like, the bigger move that's happening potentially long term is the decentering of the United States. Like, the dollar no longer being the dominant reserve currency, us no longer being the center of the global economy. A giant coalition that we've built over the course of the 75 years or 85 years since World War II. That's going to be this kind of quieter thing that takes place in the background that makes our country less safe. It makes our country less powerful. It makes us not be able to wield policies around the world through economic policy, but rather, maybe being forced to use military policy in places where we could have used, coalitions that boycott certain companies or countries and whatnot. And so there's this follow-on impact that's going to be massive and less easy to see over the course of the next, decades.
Yeah, there's another clip that I feel like people should pair with the Donald Trump saying he owns this economy. And it was the other week when he was going through the Ford Motor Company plant. And a worker shouted out something about Epstein, but you had Donald Trump high up on a platform shouting at a blue-collar auto worker, F you, and flips him off. I mean, it's the perfect imagery for this election because it's what they have said to working class Americans. They've told them to go F themselves, raised prices on them. And it's going to come back to bite him. And I mean, that's why that interview with NBC is so embarrassing is, Donald Trump always says the quiet part out loud without sometimes even realizing it.
Totally. Yeah. And by the way, to own the libs, they canceled a giant solar farm project that was going to employ lots of Americans. They've canceled all sorts of regenerative infrastructure projects for no reason. These were great projects that were going to employ lots of Americans, but I don't know, because it doesn't work with his narrative, he decided to tank them. So anyways, I know we got to keep the show moving. So we'll jump on
to the third one. But the last thing I'll say on that front, Xander, is, this and many other topics are going to be relevant to the election. And I would urge folks, if they are not currently following defiance.org, to do so. Like, subscribe, follow us on socials. At a bare minimum, go to defiance.org and sign up for free for our updates, because we are going to be doing a lot in the lead up to the midterm elections. And more than anything, trying to ensure the security of those elections and trying to fight back against the misinformation and disinformation. And I would note, Xander, in that same NBC News interview where Trump talks about the economy, before that, he talked about how he had sent his FBI agents into Georgia and that they're doing this unauthorized illegal recount, basically, of ballots in Georgia. Now, that controversy continues to swirl. We're getting more about it every day, but it just goes to show us that whether it's fake information about the economy or very hardcore efforts to try to meddle in the elections, these are going to be really, really difficult midterms for this country. They're going to test our democracy. In fact, there's speculation swirling online today that Donald Trump is going to continue some of those efforts with the FBI in other states around the country, try to use unique legal authorities to claim ownership of ballots and voting systems. And so we are going to have an all hands on deck effort to make this election too big to rig, an extraordinary turnout and a focus on election integrity. If you want to be a part of that, if you want to help us do that, go to defiance.org. Also consider becoming a member. We move on to our final topic of the day before we bring in our guests. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl here. And yesterday, some of you tuned in for the game. Others of you tuned in for a remarkable halftime show. Bad Bunny put on a performance that was generally very well regarded, but there was another show you might not have seen. And I'm not surprised why. Turning Points USA, the conservative organization, held what they called America's halftime show. And from the start, it seemed doomed. According to sources from Variety magazine, the show was pre-taped in Atlanta. It wasn't actually live, which isn't exactly a thrilling thing to watch if you know you're not watching a live show. And according to data, at its max streaming, it hit a few million views. Not too bad for a normal stream. Maybe a famous YouTuber has a few million views at any given time or after a show. But compare that to the show they were trying to counter program, the actual halftime show at the Super Bowl, which according to other data hit more than 100 million viewers. Not exactly the defection they were hoping to see from Super Bowl watchers. This is something that even today continued to haunt them. For instance, let's listen to this Republican caller on C-SPAN earlier.
Alan, Fort Pierce, Florida, Republican, you're on the air.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was a fantastic halftime show. I can't believe they put that together with so much dancing and music and musical stars, Lady Gaga and Ricky Martin. The most important thing that I don't think most people understand is Puerto Ricans are Americans. Puerto Ricans are Americans. They are part of this country and have been for over 100 years. And that's part of having this territory, this Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, is they are Americans. And a lot of people don't even know that Puerto Rico provides a huge percentage per capita of people to the U.S. military service.
And Alan, I'm curious, since you're a Republican, were you curious about the alternate halftime show? Did you want to take a look at that at all?
I flipped to it for about 10 or 15 seconds, and all it was some song that was trying to rile up the MAGA base. And remember, not all Republicans are MAGA, or not all Republicans support Donald Trump.
Yeah, not a good look. Not a good look at all. Perhaps most embarrassing, though, wasn't the lack of viewers, but the production snafus. Just hours before the show, Turning Points USA was forced to post on Twitter that they would be unable to stream to the platform due to licensing restrictions. Something you would think they would have thought of in advance. But if that wasn't enough, and again, remind you, this was pre-recorded. The headliner, aging rock star Kid Rock, seemed to be lip syncing the whole time and doing a terrible job of it. Take a look.
And this is for the questions that don't have any answers. Midnight dancers in the topless dancers. Again, freeze the cars back with speakers. The G's with the 40s and the chicks with beepers. The northern lights and the southern comfort. And it don't even matter if your veins are punctured. All the crackheads, the critics, the cynics. All my heroes in the methadone clinics. All you bastards in the IRA is for the cookie cops. And the quarter death is for the shots of Jack.
I would have hated to be at that event, and I don't want to kick a person while they are down, but by stark contrast, Bad Bunny's halftime show went off without a hitch. Now, the show itself was full of Easter eggs, including surprise guests under the casita. You may have noticed that. The watch party I was at, people were surprised to see all of these familiar celebrity faces under the casita. But bigger than celebrity guests was the level of detail Bad Bunny and his team put into bringing in and representing a true America. A small business and a Los Angeles-based taco stand, Villa's Tacos, was placed on the scene with their own branding, which was great. According to the owner, a first-generation Mexican-American immigrant, Victor Villas, Bad Bunny loved the Highland Park-based taqueria so much that he asked the business to join the halftime show. He also had New York icon, owner of one of the last New York social clubs, Tonitas, Maria Antonia Kay, make a surprise appearance. Tonitas just celebrated its 50th anniversary and is one of the only long-standing Latina gathering spots in Brooklyn to be able to withstand the harsh effects of gentrification. He also had an actual couple get legally married at the halftime show. If you were wondering whether that was real or not, it was real, signaling the continuation of life and love in our country. The show also seemed to walk a delicate line of political content. For instance, at one point, Bad Bunny passes his Grammy off to a young boy who is viewing his speech given just days ago, where he said, "Ice out." The young boy smiles, giving a candid resemblance to 5-year-old Liam Ramos, who was just released from ICE custody last week. Of course, this set the internet abuzz, but neither Bad Bunny or his team have chosen to speak on the reference, leaving it to hang in the air and with the rest of the audience. But perhaps most importantly was the closing of the halftime show. Rather than break it down, let's watch it together.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, las Antillas, United States, Canadá, a my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
Here to discuss the significance of that moment and that we have so many artists rising up to make a difference, I would like to bring into the conversation composer, songwriter, and leader of the 3-time Grammy-winning band Azo Motley, Raul Pacheco. Welcome to the program, Raul. Thank you for joining us.
How you doing? Good to catch up with you all.
Great to have you, my friend. And then we also have punk rock icon and lead singer of Rise Against, Tim McIlrath, I think, is with us. We got Tim.
How we doing,
Can you hear
everybody?
us
Thanks for
okay?
having me.
All right. Rock and roll, my friend. And then we also are adding into the conversation longtime arts activist and founder of Artists United for Change and friend of Defiance.org, Scott Goodstein. By the way, Scott, we're really lucky to have you in Defiance Land, but I think we're even luckier to have you in Musician Land because you expose us to really cool people.
Man, I'm just glad to be here, and thanks for Tim and Raul for grabbing and always taking my phone calls in weird times. So here we are again.
Raul, I want to start with you and just get your reaction to Bad Bunny's appearance overall. I mean, you know, you've been in high pressure moments leading a band, and like he went into this with the most extraordinary amount of pressure. It wasn't just, okay, this is going to be a big performance and everyone's watching it. There's this political overlay where the president of the United States is saying, you're terrible and I'm going to be watching you. I'm going to sick my people on you. And I think from that vantage point, the guy stuck the damn landing.
Yeah, I think that's always a hard thing, you know, when you're dealing with that level of production, like all those little details are immense. But obviously has a great team of people, great crew, allowed him to kind of like focus on the narrative, developing that, performing it, doing it well, and hitting a lot of points. You know, if you don't know Spanish, I think that was one of the challenges to kind of lay claim just to Latino and Spanish language presence in all of the Americas. But, you know, there's a lot of things in there that were very clear about having faith in yourself, having a belief in yourself, helping other people. So these themes of kind of inclusion were throughout it, and both the historical kind of references he made that were very specific, both past and present. I think it was pretty awesome to see all that and see everybody all happy and enjoying themselves.
For sure. Oh, Xander, you're on mute. It's a classic.
All right. Been in that position before too, taking the stage in a moment and being able to speak out, you know, on behalf of people, on behalf of democracy, on behalf of justice. Can you walk us through like what that feels like, what that means to be the voice of the people?
I don't think you the thing is, like, I think, and maybe Tim, you know, has a take on this. It's like we're just being ourselves. I don't think you should be doing that if you're not authentically into those positions, into those perspectives. I think that could probably get weird for you. But if you're practicing that life, if you're doing your best to live that life, that's what makes it much easier. It's just a natural thing. So it's clear from the get-go of, you know, Bad Bunny's kind of trajectory as a pop artist into from the beginning to what he is now. I don't think he thought that he'd have such a big, you know, world stage career to kind of like influence these topics. But so it's kind of a gift, but I think it's also for him, it's something that's natural. So I think it's in line with what he believes in. So I think it makes it much easier to speak up on it.
Yeah, Tim, can I ask you about that? Look, you're no stranger to, you know, being a musician with a huge following and speaking your mind. And so I saw, you know, Bad Bunny presumably gets to decide what the production is going to look like, and Love Wins Over Hate is on this giant banner. He's not just saying that because it's a bumper sticker. He's saying it in a pretty powerful moment. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that decision to be an artist with a following that you don't want to alienate, but you know what? Your values, your principles come before anything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. What's so striking now too is that politics in music, which at one point, certainly when I was growing up, was relegated to more of like an underground world or even like a punk and hardcore world, and you didn't always see it in the mainstream pop world. And now you're seeing it in the mainstream pop world, and I think that's impressive. I think it's something that's new that's happening, and it's you no longer have to come to a dark punk show in an all ages club to find politics in your music. Now it's in the halftime at the NFL, you know, Super Bowl, which I think is incredible because I think pop music traditionally doesn't traffic in politics. You know, it's something that ends up in the hands of bands like Ozomatli and Rise Against. You know, and so I get excited when I see like it being broadcast from such a huge platform. And as far as alienating fans or whatever, I think that, artists, true artists are just going to be authentic to themselves. You know what I mean? And whether you're alienating a fan or you're attracting a fan, it's not something that you're thinking about when you're creating.
Yeah. I want to play a clip because Bad Bunny was not the only musical guest of the night. There were some pre-shows. There were bands that played, all throughout the weekend. And at the pre-show, we had American rock group Green Day perform. And at their performance, guys, they were a little more on the nose.
The representative of Epstein's Island now has the floor.
Representative of Epstein Island now has the floor. They're calling it out. Tell me a little bit about towing that line, because I bring this up partly in the context of some folks saying that too few musicians right now are speaking out. We had on the program a couple of weeks ago Jonathan Taplin. I don't know if you guys know Tap. He used to be Bob Dylan's road manager, and he's written a lot about how the 60s and 70s should be inspiration for artists in this moment to push back against a wannabe autocrat. Are folks walking too much on the periphery rather than, hitting it on the nose Green Day style?
I mean, I always think that, but at the same time, it's like I said before, it's kind of your game. It's up to us and all of us to kind of continue the conversations in the most public way that we can. And part of what we do is we're getting opportunities to convince people who may be on the line. And if we're experiencing the same thing, it's up to each of us, I think, if we care, to broaden someone's understanding, broaden someone's perspective of what's happening, and that maybe they can we can have some agreements. It is ultimately kind of like how we move forward. I bet there's subjects that all of us disagree on. It's okay. It's like, how do we find those things that we come together and really move the needle forward in these things that we care about? And I would encourage all of us to keep doing that, because I think ultimately that's how we get people into the fold of the things that we agree with.
And I would add to this that there is a long legacy of troubadours that go and take additional actions, and both Ozzo Motley and Rise Against have been there, been tear gassed, been pepper sprayed, etc. Tim keeps going to these cold weather places. And Tim, if you could talk to us a little bit about how did the Minnesota anti-ice come together, because not every musician's going to go and put their life on the line like you did. And then the second part of that question, Tim, would be, what do you think other younger musicians or other pop culture musicians can be doing in this moment?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Well, Minneapolis, we were there last Friday at First Avenue for a Defend Minnesota matinee. I was there with my guitar player Zach. Tom Morello was there. The Boss showed up. Springsteen came and played his new Streets of Minneapolis song, which was incredible. Ike Riley from Chicago was there, and then Al Di Meola, classical guitar player, was there. Which was a curveball, I think, for everybody, but just blew everybody away. Just was incredible. That was in typical, I think, last minute, DIY kind of show putting on at the last second. That thing came together just in a few days, and next thing you know, we were all on planes. And every time I'm doing something like that, I'm constantly underestimating how powerful simply showing up can be. Because as I'm on my way there, I'm thinking, man, there are people there on the ground. There are community organizers. There are grassroots activists doing so much stuff. I'm coming in with a guitar. What could I possibly add to this right now? And it's amazing, just over a couple hours, just playing music and getting people in the same room together and on the same page, what it can do to energize people and rally people. It's always, it blows me away. It never ceases to amaze me how much music, when you can inject it into an environment like that, how powerful it can truly be. And of course, like you said, Scott, it was again in a frostbite prone place that we keep protesting. I've been at a few union rallies in Madison, Wisconsin with you in January. You know, I'm from Chicago, so I'm no stranger to the cold. I can't wait till we can go protest in Palm Springs in February one of these days. But in the meantime, I'm happy to put on some fingerless gloves and try to play a guitar somewhere while it's snowing on me. And it was really cool, you know, and it was a great way to, you know, we watch the news, we see the feeds, but to be there and hear the stories from the people, I would say what's happening in Minneapolis was even worse than I thought it was, you know, just from hearing from actual people and teachers and parents and just really just regular people that aren't used to being on the front lines of like grassroots activism. They're just in their neighborhoods watching it being taken over and feeling compelled to do something they've been kind of raised to do. We were all kind of raised to try to recognize tyranny when we see it, to recognize authoritarianism when we see it. We were all taught that, and now that we're seeing it, you know, we feel compelled to act. And these are people that are feeling compelled to act, which is great. And then I forgot the second part of your question, Scott, already.
Oh, just look, not everybody's going to go and get tear gas and pepper sprayed like you and Raul. I mean, Raul, you've been on the front lines in Los Angeles, anti-ICE as well. You know, what about the other musicians and this sort of, you know, not all musicians are speaking? Like, talk to us a little bit more about what other musicians should be doing, what other artists that have their own voices and their own platform should be doing right now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean,
oh, go ahead, Raul. Go ahead.
No, you go, Tim. I'll go after that.
I was gonna say, like, sort of to my point, like how I got on that plane to get to Minneapolis with my guitar, and I kind of underestimated what I could possibly be doing. I think musicians sort of underestimate how powerful their voice is, and they are maybe intimidated by that. Like, but I'm here to tell you, don't be like even just a song as a gesture or a symbol of your support goes a long, long way. And so I would encourage musicians to do that if it's something they're feeling. If it's something that you're not feeling, you obviously don't fake it, you know, don't be performative about it. But if it's something that you're feeling and you're keeping it in, don't keep it in, because there are so many voices out there and so many people out there that want that support. And don't be intimidated by it. And don't listen to, like, you know, the negative feedback that you might get by getting political, because obviously when music gets political, it eventually hits like a pushback, you know, the typical like stay in your lane or less talk, more rock kind of thing, you know. But I will tell you, as a guy who's been doing this for 25 years, politics being infused into what we do is why I'm still here doing it. And we've attracted far more of an audience than we have alienated. And I think that that's an important thing for musicians to know, is that people are going to recognize authenticity, and there are people out there waiting for your voice to join in the fray.
Yeah, Raul, I want to ask you about, you know, where we're also seeing some of that, or maybe lack thereof. And we're going to talk about this briefly at the end of our program. We always do a segment called Who is Joining the Defiance? And we've got a number of Olympians who have decided to use that moment, as often people will do during the Olympics, to call out what we are seeing. And we're going to laud some of those people at the end of the program here. But I also worry that in those moments, you see a lot of fear among the athletes, just like you will see in artist circles, that they'll think one thing, they'll talk about it in private, but be really scared to talk about it in public. And surely a lot of y'all's peers in the industry, you have conversations like that when you're on tour, when you're going to a show, is they're like, yeah, the country's descending into fascism, but it's not my job. I don't want to touch it. I will say in some of those other spheres, one thing that we have noticed is, compared to last year, the attitude towards collective action is almost FOMO right now, is we've shifted from people being scared to do it to being really eager to come join the defiance, to come join the resistance to all of this. I wonder if you're seeing that change in the air in general as you're engaging with folks in the industry.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening, because the quote unquote normal status, you know, is so off of that even people who are on the sidelines are kind of saying, wait a minute, you know, so, you know, I need to do something or say something. The humanness of them is coming out beyond our particular jobs. So there's, you know, one of the things that's you're seeing in all these different areas, whether it be music, art, sports, and, you know, the kind of mixture of all that and something like the Super Bowl is that there's all these interests that see what happening is not good, not good for business, not good for moral stance, not good for a human perspective. And there's so many things that are clearly coming at them saying this isn't good. And how do I, say something? And people who usually don't are speaking up. And I think for people who are like on in the Olympic teams, speaking up, there is a backlash in a sense, but that I think, I would encourage them not to be fearful of that, and remind them that there's a lot of people who agree with them. And that's always a choice that we have to make as an individual. And I think it's important for us to remind and speak on all the ways that anyone can do that and just keep encouraging people to step forward and speak out.
And Raul, you're being extremely shy and gentle about this point because you were a cultural ambassador for the U.S. State Department.
Yeah.
Tours in Burma, Mongolia, representing the American flag while being an anarchist from East LA, man. Come on.
Well, we got the call. We weren't sure if they knew who we were. And then, we had to sit and step back and be like, okay, what is this really about? Because there is, these kind of like cultural and political and economic intervention that countries make into each other's spaces. And it's part of their power goals, in a sense. So what we found that there's this, and I don't know if I'm sure there's some people who are still there, but there was a lot of like people who, originally were old, like I would just say like old hippies and stuff who like got into like wanting to do work in different parts of the world for reasons I think that were good. And then like any system, some of it's not totally up and up, and some of it is just straight and up and just straight about helping. We found that the people who invited us to those particular places, we felt comfortable with them and we felt connected to the people. And one of the things that we often did was imagine us like, there's a Jewish guy, a Chicano dude, a Mexican dude, like half Spanish, half Mexican, Creole, like Black American guy, a Japanese guy showing up, and we're the American band. Here we are. So that mythology just there, even us showing up, was kind of a nice surprise, I think, for a lot of people. And for us, we just wanted to connect with people and remind them that not everybody in whatever state your government is connected to the government in that way. We don't agree with every aspect of the government. So that was one of the reminders that we put forward and was the only reason we could do those shows. And we found like everywhere the fears that are instilled in us about other places are kind of the same coming our direction. So we felt it was important to be with people and let them see that there is a diversity, there is a kind of a thing you're presented with that's not very thorough, and that life on this planet is much more nuanced. There was much more interesting. It's much more like there's so much minutia that is great, and we've got to kind of remember that about our own selves and about each other.
Well, before I flip it back to Xander to close us out, I just want to ask, and Tim, maybe I'll just put this question to you. Are we going to see like a Woodstock for this moment or what? I feel like, come on, if we're every day having to fight the encroachment of fascism, we at least get to have a Woodstock to push back, don't we? And can Rise Against lead the charge on pulling that together? I bet Scott's got the money at Artists for Change.
First here.
I think you're onto something there, and I have been talking to some artists, friends of mine, and it's awesome to actually see an old familiar face like Raul, because I'm gonna make sure to give him a call next week too.
Yeah.
But like, we've been talking to Dropkick Murphys this week, who've been very active on stage, like Pennywise, Descendants. Like the punk scene needs to meet this moment. Bands that are calling themselves punk, that come from a world that has traditionally rejected what's happening out there in the world right now. I think this is our time to meet this moment. So yes, I think you're onto something. I think there needs to be a moment like that, and we are conspiring behind the scenes as we speak to meet that moment.
Yes, you heard it here first, folks, on Defiance Daily. Counter Trump Woodstock is happening. Rise Against is going to be there. Everyone's going to be there. Hopefully, we get some news stories out of this, Tim. And you're like, I'm never going to talk to those guys again because they screwed me. That would be awesome. I love to hear rumblings of those things happening. But sorry, Xander, I'll throw it back over to you.
Look, before we let these guys go, I just want to give them their flowers. You know, I've got a friend that says politics is where some of the people are some of the time. Culture is where all the people are all of the time. And so you all are playing so many important roles. One is taking that all the people and moving them into the some of the people category where they're getting politically engaged. Two, we've talked a lot about this, the need for revolutions to be fun. You know, we talked about the Portland Frog Brigade. You talked about community coming together at music concerts. People can only engage with anger for so long. You run out of that energy. But if our activations are community building, are enjoyable, we can have the sustained endurance necessary to overcome this threat. And it will take endurance. It does take endurance. And so you all and what you're contributing and what your peers are contributing allows us to have that endurance. And then lastly, I'll say, look, in America, the rest of the world mostly knows America through our entertainment. That's our best export, is our entertainment. And so no matter what, you know, JD Vance and Trump are saying at the podium, which is damaging us around the world over and over and over again, we've still got you all and Bad Bunny included in our export for the rest of the world to see. Look, maybe the politicians are saying one thing, but look what we're celebrating. Look what we listen to. Look how we think we should be in this world and how we want to show up. Diversity is our strength in America. And as long as you guys keep doing what you're doing, the rest of the world is going to know that's who we are too. And so I just wanted to thank you across all those fronts. And thank you for joining the program today and providing your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah.
We appreciate
I owe
it.
you all via tacos, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's me.
Cheers,
They're
guys.
good.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Raul. The lead singers of Ozzo Motley and Rise Against. That was pretty cool, Xander. That was fun. We didn't ask for a performance, so we screwed up because...
Yeah, sorry. All you get is Frozen from me and Miles.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
right.
saying Frozen relentlessly to my 3-year-old. It's
That's
not
right.
great. You don't want a performance. From
Mine hasn't even seen the film, and I like hear the lyrics. I'm like, how does this even happen? We don't sing it in our house. Is it like coming through the walls? Anyway,
the mouse
it's
has
scary.
reach, man. The mouse has reach.
It's so scary. Our final segment of the day, and as always, is who is joining the Defiance. I teased it during that conversation, but with the Super Bowl being a huge moment, we have to turn to another huge moment, which is on the world stage, and that is American Olympians are choosing to speak out. And I want you to watch this clip of American figure skater Amber Glenn.
Yeah, it's been a hard time for the community overall under this administration. It isn't the first time that we've had to come together as a community and try and fight for our human rights. And now, especially, it's not just affecting the queer community, but many other communities. And I think that we are able to support each other in a way that we didn't have to before. And because of that, it's made us a lot stronger. I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong in these hard times. I know that a lot of people say, you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all. It is something that I will not just be quiet about because it is something that affects us in our everyday lives. So, of course, there are things that I disagree with, but as a community, we are strong and we support each other, and brighter days are ahead of us.
Well, look, I'm glad to get that optimistic note from Amber Glenn. And I will say, despite some dark months there in this second Trump reign of terror, I am also starting to feel the optimism, Xander. I don't know about you.
I mean, this goes back to the roots of the Olympics, right? This is why we have this event, to remind us that we're all in this blue dot together and we can get along and we do celebrate the same things. You know, I think some people know my dad was an Olympic champion and he won the first Goodwill Games. I've actually a picture of me 3 months old on the podium of the Goodwill Games. But my dad during the Cold War was one of the most popular athletes in the Soviet Union. He was one of the most popular athletes in Iran. If you don't think that makes a difference, where people from across the world feel familiar and feel love and devotion with someone from the other nation, and it humanizes it beyond, it humanizes the people of that country beyond, you know, maybe a poor leader who's talking smack and pretending like this world is organized in a us versus them death match. The Olympics and other international events have always reminded us, the World Cup, of course, that we're in this together. We like the same things. We like eating great food. We like celebrating sports, and you know, hopefully it continues to be a reminder. And shout out to the athletes for letting the world know, you know, just because this guy won the presidency doesn't mean he is America. Just like Bad Bunny and, you know, the other artists we just spoke about.
Such a great point. Well, I will say we are also going to have other cultural figures speaking out. I know we've been talking a lot about this event, but we're coming close to it. And so if folks want to see other people stepping up in this moment, other leaders, and to cheer them on and to be a part of something historic, join us at our rebuttal to the State of the Union. It will be the largest rebuttal to Donald Trump's State of the Union on February 24th. You can find out more details at defiance.org/SOTU. SOTU. You can sign up for free to watch the live stream. You can get tickets to come see us in person. You can get a ticket package for a special virtual experience. All of it goes towards covering the cost of the event and towards counter-Trump activations. All of the speakers are volunteering their time to be a part of this. This is going to be a huge moment of solidarity and a moment where we get to push back and counter-program what Donald Trump is doing, and not in the way that Turning Points USA tried to counter-program the Super Bowl. We're going to do a little better than that. And we didn't invite Kid Rock. Kid Rock's not coming. So, like, if you need one reason to show up, it's that Kid Rock will not be there. So you can be totally confident in that, right? I mean, unless, Sandra, you did something that I didn't know about.
I didn't book him.
Well, listen, folks, I apologize. We have to end the program early today. We're not going to be able to take viewer questions because I have got to knock some things out before joining our friends over at MS Now. So tune in a little bit to the weeknight on MS Now at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be talking about some breaking news. We are going to be talking about controversies coming out of this administration, and we are going to be talking about how the defiance is growing. Don't forget to join us tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern. I think tomorrow night, Xander, just to tease for folks, I think we have former Clinton advisor and White House official Sidney Blumenthal on the program with us. And then this Wednesday, we have a very special weekly mission brief. So don't forget to join us Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for that. We'll tell you a little bit more about that tomorrow. And in the meantime, as we always say, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together.